Good evening. Tonight is Wednesday, May 18th, and you're watching Kayla's ISM Final Product. I'm Emma Bittner.
And I'm Brody Williams. Dyslexia is the most common learning disability in the world, but how much do you really know?
Kayla investigated the many misconceptions about dyslexia.
It affects as many as 1 out of 5 students. It cannot be outgrown, and it is often misunderstood and misdiagnosed. I went on a mission to debunk the common misconceptions about the most prevalent learning disability in the world, dyslexia. Even though it's extremely common, dyslexia is commonly misunderstood by teachers. I took an anonymous survey of several Centennial teachers to see what they knew about dyslexia. While all of the teachers correctly qualified dyslexia as something that affects reading and writing, most didn't know that dyslexia affects speaking as well. They also didn't know that it commonly runs in families and that it cannot be outgrown. Michelle Bilderbach, the dyslexia specialist for Frisco ISD, shed some light on what dyslexia actually is.
One of the biggest misconceptions is that they see letters or they see words backwards. They often think that they see like the word was as saw, and that's just not true, or that it has to deal with numbers and items such as that when it is just phonologically based.
When diagnosing a child, a dyslexia specialist starts out with a general reading and writing test. If the child is having difficulty reading and decoding words, they continue on to see if it is a phonologically based issue.
If it's phonologically based, then we look at it and we say, is it unexpected that they would be doing that? They're doing well in math, they're doing well in all their other subjects, yet that cognitive ability is there, but they're still not doing well in that reading. And so if it's all there, then they show the characteristics of dyslexia, and we educationally identify them as a student with dyslexia, and they go through the 2 years of remediation and usually come out doing quite well.
In fact, the people who truly understand it are the people who live with it. Ryan Mosikowski, a former Centennial star football player and current Clark Middle School coach, struggled with dyslexia throughout his childhood.
It was really frustrating going through school. I had a really hard time when I was younger reading and had a little bit of a speech impediment. And then I worked with my dyslexia teacher, and she did a phenomenal job. And so it's just kind of been hard, but at the same time, I also look at it as an advantage because I look at different things and I see a different perspective on certain problems in life or whatever it may be. I would say if I had to say anything or give advice for people who had dyslexia, like even though it's really frustrating at times, eventually you'll be able to cope with what you have. And it's actually pretty cool to look back and think about all the mistakes I used to make and that I've come such a long way now. And so it's kind of cool to really see that, taking my dyslexia classes really did help, and doing all the things that I had to do that I did not want to do actually in the long run really did help me become the person that I am and the teacher that I am. And so I'm thankful for all those people that helped me through my journey with all the classes.
This has been Kayla McCullough with CENTEN News.
Another problem that is plaguing the student population is technology addiction.
Kayla sees how this could affect our future.
More and more, we see ourselves and the people around us becoming addicted to technology. While it is making our lives easier, how is it affecting us long term? I conducted an anonymous survey of 100 people to learn more about their technology habits. From the survey, 28% of participants say they use technology for more than 6 hours a day. But the idea that one can be addicted to technology is not new to people. Of the people surveyed, a whopping 58% of participants admit that they feel addicted to their technology. I spoke to Centennial psychologists to see how an increased dependence on technology could affect us long term.
Psychologically, I do think that young people will need to learn to limit and just set boundaries around the dependence on the technology so that they can just avoid going to it instead of going to people. Our world still has to work in terms of relationships, and so we have to have that as a skill. I think that we could just use other avenues for social connection. I think that people could kind of go back to where we'd meet up and actually talk and have face-to-face meetings, and versus just the quick instant messaging and the posting online and the social media.
Ms. Tammy Turner, Centennial's librarian, shared insight on how our new reliance on technology could be beneficial as well.
There are benefits to the increased reliance on technology. There have been studies that have shown that since we now have like GPS units and map features in our phones, that we no longer have to have that information in our brain, and we can therefore spend time thinking critically about other items that aren't root memorization. You know, when they invented calculators, it meant we no longer had to do everything by hand. We now had something to assist us so we could, you know, expand our knowledge and do things that we weren't capable of getting to do before. So there's benefits in that regard. There's also benefits socially, I think. There's been, again, studies shown that while some people worry that social media is keeping us from communicating, or that text lingo has taken over grammar, it doesn't actually affect your regular grammar. If you are of normal intelligence and you can differentiate between social settings and educational settings and your audience, then you're not going to use text lingo in your papers, and you're really going to use the same grammar you would have whether or not you had gotten used to text lingo or not. And it also helps us have contact with people that we wouldn't have normally. You know, if you've got people that are living out of state that have moved away, you would have normally lost touch with them or relied on mail to get a paper back and forth, the written letter back and forth, and now you can do it instantaneously if you miss somebody. So soldiers in Afghanistan or overseas, you could actually see and know that they're okay, and they could see you on a holiday to help their emotional well-being. So there are definitely benefits to technology.
This has been Kayla McCullough with Sin 10 News.
That's all for Kayla's final product.
Thank you all for coming.